just as I am sitting here on the shore looking out to the sea at Royal Troon here in Ayrshire, so the people to whom Jesus was teaching and preaching, they would have been gathered standing on the shore, looking out to Jesus on a boat in the Sea of Galilee. We read that story in Luke chapter 5. And Jesus teaching from that boat out on the sea to the people gathered on that sandy shore was the prelude to Peter being called by Jesus to become a fisher of men. If you have your Bible, I invite you to turn, if you will, to Luke chapter 5 and to note in particular verse 4. Jesus instructs Peter and his fellow fishermen to put out into deep water, to go right out into the Sea of Galilee and to put down the nets for a catch. Peter answers, quite understandably, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so," note this, "because you say so, I will let down the nets." Well, I want you to note that the words of Jesus on the shore to Peter that morning contained both a command and a promise. It's not as if Jesus is saying, let's go out into the deep water, put down the nets, and we'll keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. He's not saying that at all. What he is promising is that if Peter will obey, Peter will catch fish. Let me say that again. Jesus is promising that if Peter will obey, Peter will catch fish. Now, I'm sure that from a very human and practical point of view, after a long night of fruitless fishing, this must have been incredibly hard for Peter to accept. In a sense, he could well have been forgiven for saying, "Aye, right, Jesus," as they say in Glasgow. I mean, after all, there were certainly reasons for Peter to be skeptical. The experience of the previous night when they'd caught nothing, absolutely nothing, not even a wee minnow, seemed conclusive. As a fisherman by trade, Peter knew the Sea of Galilee. He would have known the Sea of Galilee like the back of his hand, just like deep sea fishermen know the North Sea like the back of their hand. Yet Peter knew too that sometimes even the best fishermen can have a bad night. Peter could well have said, "Look, Jesus, just forget the whole thing. It's not worth the trouble." Or, "Jesus, wait a minute, I'm the fisherman here, not you." But this is make up your mind time for Peter. And as we consider today the statement of Jesus, note that firstly, Jesus asked Simon, that is Peter, to take the boat back out fishing after they'd just returned from working all night. The boat's just been put in, the nets have been washed. And on the face of it, this is a crazy proposition by Jesus. Go out in the boat again? We caught nothing the first time. What's going to be any different this time? And secondly, Jesus asked him to go back out and fish, even though they had already or had almost cleaned their nets. They'd have to start all over again. Historians will tell us that you will never catch fish in the Sea of Galilee during the day in deep water. Fish will only come, in the Sea of Galilee at least, at night. And I say that to say this, that Jesus is asking Peter to do something which seems absolutely crazy, absolutely absurd, and quite frankly, potentially a waste of time. For sure, Peter was fine with Jesus using his boat as a pulpit, but now Jesus was, as it were, crossing over into his territory. Peter could well have said of Jesus, what does he know about fishing? It's like the absurdity of giving carpentry advice to a carpenter, or electrical advice to an electrician, even fishing advice to a fisherman. Imagine if someone who knew little to nothing about your job gave you advice about what to do. How would you respond? Well, probably like I would, with a little bit of attitude. However, although Peter initially protests, he quickly concludes, because you say so. Had it been anybody else, he might not well have done this, but because Jesus says so, because the Master says so, Peter is letting down the nets. Even though his fellow fishermen would not be pleased to clean the nets again, even though it didn't make any sense to him, even though it went against everything he had ever been taught as a fisherman, even though it was going to mean more work for him, even though it would make him look foolish in front of his friends, Peter did what? He did as Jesus asked him. He let down the net. For Peter, this letting down of the net was a life-changing moment. He may not have been initially enthusiastic about what Jesus told him to do, but he did it anyway. He let down the net. And that physical act of letting down the net reminds us that we too still have a part to play. You see, the fish weren't going to jump into the net by themselves. Absolutely not. The fish were not going to jump into the net by themselves. We still have to do what we have to do. We've got to share the gospel. We've got to put in the hard yards. We've got to put in the effort. As the old chorus reminds us, there's a work for Jesus none but you can do. Are we prepared to let down our nets to do what Jesus is asking us to do, even although it may seem absurd and crazy? Are we prepared today to do what Jesus is asking us to do, to let down the metaphorical nets in our life? The letting down of the net was a transforming moment for Peter, and tomorrow in Teaching Truth we'll discover what happened when Peter let down the nets.